Gilson got on a freighter in 1925 with his brother and his wife, Uncle John and Aunt Alice, and they went on a long journey to northern India, where my dad was born in Assam. Due to some health problems, they had to return fairly soon to the United States. My mom's parents, Marlon and Melva Farnham, got on a ship in 1927 with two babies, aged 2 and 2 months, and headed for Japan. And if you know your history at all, you might know why 13 years later they had to return to the United States as the war was approaching. And so I have these 4 people who are very much a part of my cloud of witnesses who are no longer with us in body, but in spirit. My parents, you already mentioned, were missionaries. They met in New York State and decided they also received the call to go to the mission field. And so this is just an important part of who I am today. Chuck and I were called in 1998, actually, to go, and we went in 99 to Thailand. And you've shared a little bit about Chuck now being the pastor of a church, and I'll explain that in a little bit. This is our family. When we went to Thailand, they were ages 10, 8, and 6, which was rather challenging at the time, but they're not 10, 8, and 6 anymore, as you can see. Our daughter Rachel's in the middle. She's a teacher in Philadelphia, married for 7 years now. Kenny is our youngest, and he got married 3 weeks ago, and he and his wife are out in Seattle now. And Rebecca is a nurse who's now working on a farm that also takes care of adults with disabilities, and she's getting married in June. So we have another one coming. The Aka people migrated down from China. There's still 1.5 million Aka in China, the southern part of China, and 300,000 in Myanmar or Burma, and about 100,000 now in Thailand. And they've all immigrated within the last 120 years. So they were not native to Thailand originally. And so they are one of about 6 major ethnic minority groups who have come into Thailand. Thailand is considered the country that everyone wants to go to, kind of like how U.S. is perceived by people that are trying to come to us. Thailand is that country there. And the Aka have come mostly for a better way of life. Dakota, do you remember what the country of Thailand looks like? Do you remember what I told you guys last year? Okay, what does the country of Italy look like? See, isn't that amazing how everybody knows that? Thailand is, I think of elephant. The elephant is the national animal of Thailand. If you look at just the head, like 2 ears, and a mouth, and then the trunk. So now you know what Thailand looks like. If you go look on the other side of the world, you'll find it over there. Globalization has been a huge issue here in the States, but also where we were living. This is the typical Aka village in 2001, 20 minutes from our house. We were in a mission house, but we really connected with this village. And look at it in 2019. You can see it's become a lot more permanent. The Aka are no longer allowed to move around the mountains and pick up their village every 5 years and burn off more land, and they have to establish themselves to be registered. And so they've become much more permanent, and their standard of living has also come up as they're getting jobs closer to cities these days. This is the city of Chiang Rai, just 5 minutes from our house the other direction. What did we do there? Well, Chuck was called to come and teach the Bible. Now, you're fortunate because you have Pastor Steve, who's had training, and you were able to look at his resume. This is 13 years ago, I guess now. When you had a search committee, I'm sure you were looking at things like, where did he go to school? Where was he a pastor before? What experience does he have? What's his theology? These villages don't have that opportunity. Dakota, you're going to have to play along with me here, okay? So in this group of people, how many of you are there? About 60? I don't know. I would say in a group that size, maybe 8 to 10 of you can actually read the Aka language, because they didn't have a written language till about 60 years ago, and there's no school to teach you. So you have to learn from someone else. So maybe 8 to 10 of you can read. Dakota, I heard that you can read the Aka language, right? That's great. That's great. That's the first step. But the second part of this question is, are you on drugs, addicted to opium or anything like? No. Could you all clap for our new pastor of our church? She has a heart to serve, and she isn't on drugs, and she can read the Bible. So this qualifies her, okay? So yeah, you can understand how this could be hard for them. They have no training. So Chuck and these men would have training that every month they would come to Dakota, would get on her motorcycle. Sorry, Mom. Get on her motorcycle and come down to the training center and learn for 3 days and then go back and teach whatever she learned and then come back again. That's the kind of seminary we have for the Aka. I think we had about 45 villages that we were connected to. Today we are pleased to say that 85% of the villages in Thailand are professing Christ. Doesn't mean that everyone's a Christian, but predominantly, and they have local churches that have been built in their villages. This is amazing. It's a really incredible story. Laos and China, where the predominant number of non-Christians are beginning to hear the word, but you cannot go in there and proselytize. You would get put into jail or kicked out of the country. And if you saw how tall Chuck is, 6'5", and neither of us would be very hard to miss if we were walking around. So the exciting part to us is that the Christian Aka in Thailand have started to get the vision to go back to their own brothers and sisters in these countries. So one of the things they're doing is a radio program. For $5, you can buy a transistor radio. They smuggle them in to the villages, but then Joe is making these Aka programs for a half hour of reading the Bible and telling testimonies and doing Christian music. So every Aka person knows that at 7:15 they can turn on their radio, and for half an hour in their own language they're going to hear a program that comes from the Far East Broadcasting out of the Philippines into Laos and China. So this is just one of the ways they're doing it. Drug rehab was very important. Unfortunately, that area of Thailand was where they grew poppies for opium in the day when it was legal. And then when they made it illegal, it caused a lot of difficulties for people that were dependent on that for income. And sometimes people just started taking too much themselves. This story is too long to tell you, but I will say that one of the non-Christian villages took sweaters from a church in Pennsylvania. Chuck took sweaters to them, and they were like, "What do you want? What gives?" He said, "No, God just loves you." And it started that relationship, that idea of going and staying, and he started going up and having tea with the head man. And finally he said, "If you really want to help me, here comes the need part. How do you heal our sick?" He said, "We have 35 drug addicts that we need to get clean because the government won't give us citizenship unless we clean up our village. Would you take them?" We'd never done drug rehab, but there were people that had. And so Chuck took them out for 3 months. 16 of those men and women accepted Christ. And when they got back over time, the next 6 months, they chose to follow Jesus Christ. And guess what happened? They got kicked out of their village. They could no longer plant rice with them. They couldn't live with them because the animist Aka believed that the spirits would curse them if they have Christians in their village. And so this was the beginning of a brand new village that was Christian from the start. But this is some of the difficulties that they faced. Water projects are a big part of what we were doing. Everyone deserves a clean water, we believe. And as these villages started to get more permanent, they needed to have a water source. Coffee came in. I'm not saying you should all drink coffee. I don't drink coffee, but it came in just at the right time for these people who were looking for other income. Dakota is only making $30 to $50 a month as the pastor of the church. She can't support her family on that. So how are they going to continue to work in the church? Planting coffee turned out to be a great thing because they live high up in the mountains. And we have a missionary who specifically works in agriculture and he has a connection with, again, I'm not promoting these, but Starbucks and McDonald's in Thailand. So we had a market, because you can grow as much coffee as you want, but if you don't have a market, you're stuck. So this is one of our pastors. I worked with the women in helping them with their handicrafts. They had beautiful handwork. And again, it was providing a market and a place for us to develop those products. And I used to bring them. Had it been a few years ago, I would have been asking you, would it be okay for me to bring some of the products here and support the ministry? But right now, those women all have started their own businesses, which is neat. Sunday school training, very important, because the little kids... what's your name again? Sage. So Sage's age and younger, they already at this point have smartphones, or someone's handing them one to keep them entertained during church, or they're running all over the place. Globalization has affected everywhere. It's not something we can stop. The problem is they're getting all their input from that, and we don't have the Christian resources that you have here. And so we were trying to develop some of those and help them to have something to counterbalance some of that. You guys probably don't realize how wonderful it is to have electricity. You think it's great? If you go for 6 hours without it, we're complaining, right? Some of these villages didn't have any electricity. And then the day they get it, what happens? They buy a TV. Now, we grew up on TV, but we had time for people to tell us what was appropriate or not. They just got it all at one time, and no child psychologist is telling them anything. So it's been really, really, really impactful. That's one of my Sunday school classes that was kind of my role model village for others. Leadership training. I'm just going to go through these. Women's retreats. And then the STEP program is the Student Tuition Expense Program. This is scholarships for children to be able to go to school. And this is an area I'm going to dwell on just for a minute, because in my new role, I'm now no longer just working with Thailand and Myanmar, but I'm now also going to the Dominican Republic. I'm going to Hungary. I'm going to the Congo. And I'm starting to see some of the areas where, through no fault of anybody's, there hasn't been evaluation done that assesses, are we doing things the way we should have kept? Should we keep doing them the way we always did? Is it time to stop something? Is it time to change how we do it? And this is representative. I'm losing half their people here. They're eating lunch? Oh, I thought you said they're eating lunch. I'm like, we're supposed to all eat together. Stay in one house. My point is that I find too many children, I shared this in Sunday school, are in dormitories or hostels or orphanages that don't need to be there because of something we started 60 years ago that was good. Schools for children who had no school, but they had to come down from their villages. Today there's schools near them and their parents are still sending them out, and some of us are supporting them in those situations. I'm a strong proponent that children need to be in their family home or in their villages with relatives, at least to the age of 12, because they have schools up to 6th grade. If they need to go out after that, I kind of get it, yes. They don't see it that way. They think they're giving their kids a great opportunity because education is seen next to God, kind of. Book learning. I never had book learning. My child, who's 12, knows so much more than I do because they have book learning. They have their kids making major decisions for them. And I'm like, no. Life experience is the best teacher. Your kids at 12 don't know yet what life is going to hold. But yes, it's because they've been doing it for 2 generations. And the kids are not understanding how to be family because of that. I wish I had more time. These are the kids from that village that started up new as a Christian village. We try to assess with the young people. I think here in the States and overseas, this thing has happened where if you're going to be successful, it means you have to graduate high school and go to where? College. If you're not going to college, it's somehow you're not a success. That's not true, is it? we know we need electricians, we need hair cutters, we need cooks, we need farmers. And so one of the things we're having to combat now